right, boom. Everyone got the recording. Awesome. Cool. Good, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. If you notice, I'm not saying what the episode is because we mix these things up a little bit. So yeah, welcome and thank you for listening again. Hey, Tane, welcome back again.
Yeah, hey, how are you?
Good. Thank you. What have you put into your basket of knowledge since we last spoke?
I think what I've taken right before break is that it's good just to be on top of things. I think sometimes we try and get ahead of ourselves and try to do more. I've been trying to do this more this week, trying to get ahead in my assignments that are due after the break. But sometimes it's just good to be up to date. You know, you're not behind, so you don't have to chug away at anything. But at the same time, you know, you've got things there that can come when you're ready for them. So I think just realizing that you don't always have to try and be ahead of the game, but sometimes you can just be part of the game. That's what I've learned this week.
Yeah, and that's so true because so many times, you know, we like to be ahead of the game, and then sometimes when we go so ahead, we actually forget what we're doing and we make mistakes. You know, sometimes we rush to get to the end, we forget what the end is, and you know, just taking it slow and steady with the pace is a good way to go. That's a pretty good learning. My big learning, I think, is I think it's something that's just a culmination of everything. It's just it's okay just to do nothing. You know, it's okay to have a day when you just go, right, you know what, I'm just going to just chill and take it easy. And I think there was a testament from the last podcast where we learned about burnout and the impact of burnout. And as I reflected back on that, I realized that actually I'm on the go all the time and, you know, wanting to do things, so many things. And that's quite dangerous, you know. I think it's very similar to what you're saying, that you want to get into the game, but when you get into the game, sometimes you actually forget about stopping, enjoying, and just enjoying the other things. So yeah, taking a break and just doing nothing is also okay sometimes. That's my big learning, especially as we go into the Easter break, which is great. Awesome. That's fantastic. And it's a great way to segue into our guest. As always, we love to introduce and bring in some people that we think are pretty fascinating. All our guests have been fascinating. All our guests so far have had some golden nuggets. And I think today, well, I know today is going to be just the same. Welcome to our guest, Tian. Welcome to our guest, Tian, to the podcast.
Hello, thank you, Prajesh.
No worries. Tian, before we get started, do you want to tell listeners just a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into our story?
Yeah, cool. So I'm a fifth year student at Otago this year. I'm doing a BA majoring in Japanese, and my minor's maths and stats. It's been a long 5 years, and this is my second year as a subordinate at Carolyn Freeman College, and that's been brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. What a great way to start. And I'm going to start with your first statement. It's been a long 5 years. Let's go back to when you were in high school all those years ago. If someone said to you, hey, Tian, you're going to be at university for at least 5 years, what would you have said to them?
I would have told them that they're crazy.
Yeah, and
in
why
fact,
is that?
I have told somebody that they're crazy. My dad said, yeah, this isn't going to go as smoothly as you think. And I went, you're dreaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Which is awesome.
Yeah, I thought I would get in, do my 3-year degree, alleged 3-year degree, and get out, be a teacher, and be done with it. And I'd be out of school right now teaching.
Yeah, and no, that didn't happen, did it? That didn't happen. And I think that's important to remember, because a lot of people, when they finish up at school, they think whatever they're going to do next, if it's study, it's going to be X amount of years and they'll be done. But we all three of us here know that does not happen. That does not happen. You know, if someone said to me that I've been working at a university for however long working at a university, I'll be like, what are you talking about? And here we are. So when you were at school and you were looking to leave, what was the dream? You mentioned you wanted to be a teacher. Was that what you wanted to do? Was that the dream?
Yeah. So that was the dream. Even when I went through the Go to OU program with you, I was always like, teaching, that's my thing.
Yeah.
So I left high school thinking I was going to come out of this being a Japanese teacher, maybe media studies teacher, basically in the high school realm, teaching something.
Yeah.
I just knew that I wanted to, help high school kids out and teach them and be there with them. So yeah.
And why teaching? You know, it's very rare to find someone who, well, and I say this rare, I mean, there are young people out there want to be teachers, but it's very rare these days to people that actually want to be a high school teacher. I find people want to be primary school teachers or ECE teachers, but high school teachers like, no. Why was that something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, everyone around me kept telling me that I'm crazy for wanting to go into high school. They're going to be they're going to be little devils and they're going to run around. But I had really good teachers that were great influences on me right through high school, and I kind of looked up to them and I went, I want to be that for the next generation coming through. So that was my reasoning.
And I guess it's a good place to go. Can you think of any one moment that, or one teacher that gave an influential moment, or maybe two or three?
Yeah, I've got a few, but one that stands out was, I mean, right from high school through to even now, I've had these ups and downs with my mental health and all of that. But I remember I was holding it in at the time, and then one day at school I just broke, and I was like sitting alone in the bathroom just crying it out, having a massive sob. And then I finally decided to go find one of my teachers and be like, I need help. And there were quite a few teachers around that day that all just came into this one little little room, little office, and said, we're here with you, we're here for you, all is well. And from that moment on, I just had this great support network.
Awesome. It's crazy that the power of the people around you, right? And the people that you don't realize will actually come to your aid. They're there around you, but sometimes people just do what's in the job description and then the rest. But I have to take my hats off to a lot of teachers and a lot of people that are out there that are in the education field, where education doesn't just stop in the classroom, but it's actually the whole holistic thing, which is great. So you now had a choice. So do you want to tell our listeners where you're actually from, so they could give us some context as to your choices that you had when you were leaving school?
Yeah, cool. I'll go back behind school for a second.
Yeah, let's go back. Exactly.
Yeah. I was born in Sydney, grew up there until I was 9 years old. And then mum and I shifted to Wellington, and that's where I kind of grew up and did the rest of my primary, intermediate, and high school through there. So I went to Newlands College in Wellington, little wee college, and that's where I met you, Prajesh.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So first of all, let's go back to your transition from Sydney to Wellington. How was that for you as a young person?
I was a little bit heartbroken to be leaving Sydney, because I had this it's funny, the last episode that you did, I think it was Trisha, she also did Taekwondo. I did Taekwondo as a wee kid over in Sydney, and so listening to that I was like, that's awesome. So I had this whole family created around Taekwondo, and they were just brilliant, and so I was quite heartbroken to leave them. But then, by the time we had actually packed up and got out of the country, it was like, well, I guess I'm in New Zealand now, my grandparents are here and all is well, and I made new friends. So I settled in pretty quickly. Yeah, and we've had a few guests over the last few podcasts that have had to move country to, Abigail was one of her to move from Northern Ireland to New Zealand, and she had the same attitude as you. Okay, cool, here I am, this is my place, let's get amongst it. And that's pretty awesome. So you're at Newlands College, sorry. No, sorry. It's I think it was a lot easier for me too, because I knew that we were moving in with family in New Zealand, so that definitely helped. Yeah, awesome. I think family is pretty key, especially in a new country. So you're at Newlands College, and for our listeners out there who are not from New Zealand, Newlands College is in Wellington, like Tian said, and there's a major university there in Wellington, which is a fantastic university. And you had a choice again to go to in a university, because of what you wanted to do. How was that thinking process for you? If you can think back to then, so you're obviously a great scholar, you had choice to go to any university, and how was that transition for you, that thought process for you? Yeah, so deciding to not go to Victoria University was pretty easy for me. I nothing against the university itself, I just wanted to get out of Wellington. And that was for a couple of reasons. One, I don't like sitting still too much in general, but also I just wanted to get away from my family at the time. It was just a lot of funny dynamics going on, and I went, nah, I'm getting out of here and I'm going to go do my own thing. It kind of as far away from Wellington as possible, and that was either Auckland or Dunedin. And there was no way I wanted to go to Auckland at the time, so here I am. Oh, awesome. And can you remember when obviously you had the benefit of coming onto the trip with that. I don't know if it's a benefit or disadvantage when you came on the trip with us and you see what it's like. When you moved down for the first time, so you chose to go to a place that most people don't actually go in the first, for our listeners out there, there's some places that people
choose not to go there because it's far away, and there's different things about colleges. You chose to go to one of our furthest colleges, Aquinas College. Tell us about that, because that again would have just gone against the grain of other people.
Yeah, yeah. I still get slack for that now. Like as a subby, people will ask, "Oh, where did you go in first year?" And I'd say, "Oh, Aquinas up the hill there." And they go, "What the heck were you thinking? That's so far." But basically, when I came down on the trip to see all the different colleges, I went into Aquinas, and it was just this beautiful view over the city, like the huge windows and the common space. Just basically, I just fell in love with that view, and I was like, "All right, I guess I'm going to be here."
Yeah, it's really crazy because a lot of your peers would have been like, "What are you thinking?" Because you actively chose to go there. And how did you deal with that? I mean, I know you're a headstrong person, but we all go second guess ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I knew that there was a shuttle at Aquinas, so that helped.
Yeah,
But also right throughout that year, kind of, I decided that I kind of needed to be a bit more fit, be a bit more healthy in general. So I just sucked it up and went with that. I
yeah.
also had a mate from Wellington, from Newlands College, who ended up going to Aquinas with me. So that really helped out. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And that's awesome. You've done that. You've gone against the grain. You wanted to get away. You fell in love with the views. Happy days. What more would you want? Let's talk about your studies. So you mentioned Japanese and maths. Was that your jam? Was that what you wanted to really do? I know when I first met you, I knew Japanese was your jam. Yeah, let's talk about that there. So why
Yeah.
did you choose those specific things there?
Again, it just goes back to high school and
Yeah,
my teachers in a way. My Japanese teacher was, my idol in a way. Looked up to him a whole bunch, and so I was like, awesome. And it helps that I love speaking the language,
yeah,
learning about the language, learning about the culture, and all of that. So I was like, cool, I'm good at this. I'll stick with this. I enjoy it. So
yeah,
that one was quite easy, quite solid. And
yeah.
then the math didn't come along until later. So originally I came into Otago with a double major in Japanese and media studies. I took the first media studies paper, hated it, wasn't for me. I was like, this is not at all what I was expecting, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to sit through the rest of this. Um, and so in second semester, I was looking for more papers to pick up, and I saw maths just sitting there, and I was like, okay, I know that I can do math, so I may as well pick it up and run with it. And then it's just kind of stuck around since.
Yeah, you've been running with it since then. This is quite crazy, hey? Quite crazy how that
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
I'm going to step back a bit. Your Japanese teacher was your idol. Can you remember why they were your idol? Was there anything specific?
No, he was just a lovely fella, and he helped
Yeah,
me out again through a lot of my mental health stuff. And I mean, he helped me get through. We went on a high school exchange over to Japan in my final year, and there was again a lot of struggles with trying to get the paperwork filled out, not necessarily on my end, but trying to get my family to all agree with it and get my financial status in order. And he was
yeah.
just a good fella, so he helped me out a lot. And so
Oh,
I don't know, I've kind of always gone through life looking up to different,
yeah.
authority and figures and all of that.
Oh, brilliant. Awesome. Cool. That's really awesome that someone was there to help you out. Um, so you mentioned mental health a few times now, and you mentioned you had that at school, and the teachers were there around you. When you came to university, what was that journey like for you, for the mental health journey? If you want to go into that.
Yeah, no, I'm quite all right to go into that, but it's been rough. So,
Yeah,
I mean, where do you want to start?
yeah. Let's start at the beginning, wherever you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so through first year, I was pretty all right because I mean, I was still scoping everything out. Everything was new and kind of a good enough distraction to keep me on baseline. Um, and then at the end of first year, I got a really nasty concussion from playing rugby. Um, so that set me out. I was just lying in bed for 2 weeks doing nothing, and that really doesn't help the old mental health. It just went downhill. Um, and so keeping on top of things from that was really difficult. And then what I didn't realize was that it also carried over to the next year and really set my mental health just continuing downwards.
Spiral. Yeah.
Mm. And so second year is, so 2019 for me was quite rough.
Did you go?
Um,
Did you go flatting then? Were you in a flat or were you? No. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was flatting with a couple of mates from Aquinas and some rando that we found on Facebook, and that's a whole other story, but less important. Yeah, I mean, you have the whole ordinary challenges of flatting being like, oh, you do the dishes, no, you do the cooking, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I thought I was going to be this brilliant flatmate, but no, I was a bit of a a loose unit through that year. You know, in terms of my mental health, I wasn't able to study. I couldn't focus because I just had this awful brain fog, and I thought it was just I'm dumb. You know, I thought I can't do this anymore. It sucks. And on top of that, I ended up in this wee crowd of mates who were smoking a lot of weed, doing a bunch of stuff, drinking a lot, that kind of culture. And so
Yeah.
I fell in with that.
Yeah.
I smoked a lot of weed that year, and it didn't help my mental health. I just became kind of apathetic to everything around me. And so everything just fell down, and
Yeah.
wasn't great.
And when was the moment? Thank you for sharing that. When was the moment you realized actually this is not me? Was there a light bulb moment, or was there a number of moments that just happened that you're actually, wait a minute? Because it's quite easy just to just going down and just stay down there, and then we need to enjoy that life there while you're not actually enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, when I say enjoy, it was more like, well, this is, being off on my own. Drug dreamland is nicer than being depressed.
Really? Yeah.
But still at the same time, I was depressed. It was just clouded by other things. And so there were, I think, like you said, there were probably quite a few things along the way that really stood out to me. Like my mates in the flat, they knew something was up. They knew that this wasn't the ideal me. And so a couple of them came up to me and had a wee, your typical intervention for a buddy. And they're just like, T, what are you doing? Cut it out. And still, I didn't cut it out. I still took time after that. But they had my best intentions at heart, which is great. And they're still some of my tightest mates now. And then I guess there was no big light bulb moment, but what happened was that year I started dating some fella, and he was not part of my my close knit group. He wasn't. He was just out of the blue. And he kind of looked at me and looked at all that I was doing, and he was like, "This isn't normal. What are you doing?" And turns out he was right. It's like, come on, T, check your head. And so just from him, he kind of helped pull me out of this hole, and he just dragged me to the gym a bunch, and we picked up new hobbies together. So just from that and the positive environment that I was in my flat, I kind of managed to get out of that hole. And now I look back and it's like, yep, well, I learned from that at least.
Yeah. And how did your mental health change from there? So, you're in this drug-induced, I guess, apathy life, and then you start, you made it sound very easy that you went to start going to the gym, but was it actually easy? Or was it tough?
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't like a really purposeful thing that I stopped smoking and tried to pull myself out. It just so happened that instead a lot of my time was going to doing these other activities, like going to the gym and, I don't know, traveling around to Queenstown, Central Otago. And so I just didn't have the time for it anymore. But I guess there were definitely times where I was just sitting around, or even at the gym, where I was like, man, I could really go for a cone right now. And so it was always in the back of my head.
Yeah, totally.
And, the mental health didn't just shift overnight either.
Yeah.
In fact, it, took a while for that to happen.
Yeah. I think there's an acknowledgement that mental health is always a state, today we're all in some phase of that mental health spectrum. And, I think there's a lot of people that go, your mental health is just when it's in the bad state, but actually it's not. There's also good mental health. It's just a state of being. And, so it's quite awesome that you acknowledge the fact that, hey, you're at the gym, but still your mind could have been elsewhere. And that's okay. That's normal. So you went through this phase in your second year, and then you became an RA in your third year or in your fourth year. What happened so in your third year? What is your third year like? What is your third year like?
Yeah, so third year, I was going to drop out, but I didn't. So what ended up happening was, I guess alongside this fella coming along and me getting my priorities straight, I also applied to go on exchange in 2020.
Yeah.
I was going to go, clearly that didn't work out.
Yeah.
I was going to go to Japan for half a year and then go to Canada for the second half of the year.
Yeah.
And so that really, it set my goals straight ahead of me. So that was what I was holding on to for 2020, because I was thinking, man, this course kind of sucks. I'm
Yeah.
not enjoying it. I'm not doing well at it.
Yeah.
But I've got this ahead of me, so it's just that little bit of bait to keep me going.
Yeah.
So yeah. Then
So-
my third year didn't work out. The
Yeah.
exchange.
Yeah.
So
Can I go
Yeah.
back a second there? So at the end of your second year, you were going, oh, this is not for me. I'm going to drop out. So what was the inspiration to give? Because you could be like, I'm going to drop out, done. But you gave yourself a bit of a carrot. Why did you do that to yourself? Why did you say I want to go on it? Because you could have so easily been like, nah, I'm done. What is the motivation for the exchange?
I mean, more than anything, I just wanted to travel.
Yeah.
I've got mates who have been on these exchanges and have nothing but good things to say about it. So I thought that just sounds like good fun. I
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
And along the way, I might also pull myself out and, do at least one paper correctly.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a, why not?
Yeah.
Why not put myself out there for it? And
Yeah.
I didn't really have these huge hopes that I would get it before I found out that I had, because I was kind of looking at my grades going, there's no way they're going to take me, but I'll throw my hat in the ring anyway and try my
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah. And I love that, because in fact, every one of our guests have just said, just throw your hat in the ring. You never know what's going to happen, because like you said, you don't know if your grades. To you, your grades were like, this is the end of the world, but you have no idea what they're looking for. So it's awesome that you just chucked your hat in. But you chucked your hat in, and then the hat disappeared into this void of COVID-19. What is that like? What is that like for you? You get accepted. You go, right, cool, this is awesome, and then water
Yep,
shut.
gone.
Yeah.
Just gone straight
Yeah.
in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was really, really holding on until the very last day when they were like, nope, borders are closed. That's
Yeah.
not happening. So at the time, about early March, it must have been, I moved back up to Wellington from Dunedin and was starting to get ready, packing my bags and just saying my final goodbyes to the family and to my friends out there. And I was like, I'm still going on this exchange. I don't care what you're saying. You guys are doubting me. You have no hope. I was way too hopeful for that trip to go ahead. So yeah, what ended up happening was I got stuck in Wellington because it went full lockdown.
Yeah.
And so I didn't end up studying for the first semester of 2020. I just sat in Wellington with my grandparents and did nothing.
Yeah. And what is that like for you? Because I know you're a very busy person. What is that where you just do nothing?
It was kind of nice. So this whole cloud of me, the cloud that was hanging over me of depression and drugs and stress and so on. Well, I couldn't be smoking weed at my grandparents' house for one, so that
Yeah.
had to go.
Yeah.
There was just no option there, which was really helpful. But I got a minute to sit back and go, I'm okay. Everything's okay, regardless of the fact that the borders have shut down and this huge dream of going overseas is not there anymore. It gave me time to reset. I started running every second day. I got myself into this great routine of actually taking care of myself, which is insane. And I just sat around and listened to podcasts and did Sudoku. And I got to reconnect with my grandparents, spent a lot of time with them when we weren't grumpy at each other, because who wasn't grumpy during the lockdown? yeah, so it was a really peaceful time, even though it had a lot of negative side effects for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It goes back to what I said at the start. My learning from the week was it's okay to do nothing. And it sounds like this is what happened to you. It is okay for you to go, actually, no, it's okay to do nothing and actually look after yourself, which is awesome. Because basically your dream and aspiration was taken away without your control. You have no control over this the whole lot for lots and lots of people. But you found a positive, like you said, lots of people had a negative time, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean just because others had negative time, you have to have a negative time, feel guilty about it, because everyone lives in their own circle there. So now you're having this amazing time running, and you're finding yourself, and you took time off university. Why did you go back? I mean, you've now found yourself. You're like, yeah, bring it on. This is it. I'm going to be running a couple of marathons here. Bring it on. Why would you go back?
Yeah, I mean, I was never at the state of I'm going to go run a marathon, although I did end up kind of doing that in 2021. But going back to 2020,
Yeah.
I just went, well, that dream's gone, but what else am I going to do with my time? I didn't know what else to do with myself. I was still a student in my mind, so the natural path was, let's go back to Dunedin and keep going.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and just by sheer luck at the time, like right before I was about ready to move back to Dunedin, my mate posted an ad on Facebook saying we're looking for a flatmate. I hit them up straight away. I was like, let me in. And so they did. And that was just an awesome way to continue my 2020. Got in with some totally different group from my second year, but got in with some really good mates, and we had a blast living together. And I was still more or less on top of everything that was going on. Continued studying, and it still wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
But I felt a lot more like energized and invigorated to be back.
Awesome.
Had that reset.
Brilliant. And what is your main challenge then, if you can remember? What is the biggest challenge for you then?
So the fella that I started going out with in 2019, I really just lost all feeling for him over lockdown. I was like, actually, not for me.
Yeah.
So during the second half of the year, I broke up with him at some point, and then there was just this ongoing of let's be friends, let's not. And so that was relationship drama was on top for me during that time. But and also just I still wasn't great at studying. I don't know how to. I cruised through high school and then to come to university. And I realized that finally, having some different perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, it's crazy because a lot of people cruise through high school, they come to university and they go, oh, this is a whole different ballgame. And it's a whole different ballgame. It is a whole different ballgame. Tanya, I'm pretty sure you can relate to this. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely a big challenge. And I think, regardless of what your study tips are, you don't get enough advice about how you should study. And especially in person, online, there's a whole range of things that we just aren't taught that probably should be looked at. But the main thing is that you find something that works for you. As we've talked about, I think in a previous podcast, it's easy to see what everyone else is doing and go, okay, if it works for everyone else, it's going to work for me. But it's not actually the case. You're going to have visual learners. You're going to have people who like flashcards. You're going to have people who just go through the notes and that's enough for them. There's a whole range of study techniques, and it's about finding what works for you and finding what challenges you so that you are actually taking things away in your learning.
And it's pretty hard, and again, it depends on what you're learning. The way you study for Japanese versus math is going to be totally different. The way you study for sports, science, and economics is totally different. So it's important to be able to adapt, and go, right, cool. I need to be able to, and be okay with going, right, cool, I can try things out. Because sometimes we don't do that. I mean, I'm a prime example. I've got to use flashcards for everything, for example. Then it's actually, wait a minute, this doesn't actually work. Then I'm afraid to change. Because we're afraid to change, right? This is human nature, to be the fear of change. So it's important that we realize that. So Tian, you have this. You're back at university. You have this little emotional roller coaster with your fellow there, and then the year ends, and this is what inspired you to. I mean, given the journey you've had, what inspired you to then apply to be a subwarden? Because that takes a whole different kind of ball game altogether as well.
Yeah. So it must have been about early second semester, they start putting out applications to go be an RA and all of that. And so my mate Jack had done it the previous year, and he had good things to say about it. I was like, yeah, well, this just makes sense for me. I still wanted to be a teacher at that time. So I was like, you know what? I'll use this. If I get into being a subwarden, I'll use this as brilliant experience to go on and be a teacher and figure out if this is even the space that I want to be working in.
Yep.
So yeah, and then I applied to Aquinas up the hill, and then also applied to Carolyn Freeman College, kind of
Just
again out of the why not?
Yeah.
Because I'd heard good things about it. So yeah, that's how I ended up doing that.
Yeah. And you get your offer, and then what did you feel? Okay, cool, bring it on. Bring it.
Yeah. I got offered at both. And so I got the calls not too long after each other. And I was kind of sitting there thinking, what do I do? And again, my mate Jack goes, well, you know what Aquinas is. You don't know what CFC is. So why not go and try CFC? If you hate it, you can always go back to Aquinas. They'll probably still take you. And on top of that, the feeling that I got having an interview at CFC as compared to having interviewed at Aquinas were two totally different things. I walked out of this interview smiling and laughing, whereas I walked out of the Aquinas interview being like, I don't know if I got that.
Yeah, crazy how that happens. And here you are at Carolyn Freeman College doing your thing. You mentioned something there, saying, if I still wanted to be a teacher, is the teacher aspiration or dream changed a little bit now, or is it still there?
Yeah, I mean, it's still there in a way. I can see myself being a teacher still in the future, but I've very recently applied to go into the police force,
Oh, that's
and I'm
exciting.
currently going through that whole process.
Well, let's talk about that then. That's a great thing. So teacher to police force, what inspired the whole police force application, I guess?
Um,
Oh, we've lost you. Sorry, Tian, we've lost you. Can we hear you now? There we go. Yeah, welcome back. So
when I was thinking of dropping out, I was having a couple of phone calls with my auntie and uncle. My uncle's in the police force, and I was just like, do you reckon I would be suitable for this? And he was saying, yeah, why not? Go for it. And since then, my uncle has passed away, and so he was always this huge, I guess, role model in my life. And so I've kind of flipped my switch and gone, I'll go be a cop. I'm going to follow in his footsteps and go do something. It's still this whole community focused aspect that I love. So it's still taking in everything that I wanted to be a teacher for, but putting it somewhere else.
Awesome. It sounds like role models have a huge impact in your life, in your decision making, which is important. It's important to have those people that you trust as well. It's not just a random person, someone that you trust. Well, I hope. So tell me how this police training is going for you. What do you have to do for that?
So pretty much I've gone through a psychometric testing that went fine. They're sending me out a medical questionnaire, which I have to go through, and they make sure that I'm not broken in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll be fine. And then somewhere down the line, I'll have to get to the PAT test, and that's the fitness test.
Yeah.
And the bits that I'm currently working towards are doing push-ups. I have no ability to do push-ups. I can crank out a couple, so I'm working on that. And also running. Have to run very fast. Yeah. I cannot run fast. I can run far,
but not fast. Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. That's another goal. It's another goal.
Yep.
It's another goal setting stuff, which is fantastic. Before we talk about that, I want to talk about something that I think has always been exciting for me. Is every time I've seen you, your hairstyle is different. You've had a different hairstyle in every time we've had a chat. And do you want to tell our listeners about that? About the journey with your hair, which I think is great.
Yeah. So back in high school, I had long hair. I don't even think that you ever saw me with long hair.
No, I didn't.
so when we first met, that was just after we had done the Shave for a Cure at high school, and that was cool. I was like, actually, short hair's not too awful. But yeah, then in the second year, as part of my mental health crises, I dyed my hair bleach blonde. so, that was fun. And then I had frosted tips for a little bit. Swiftly got rid of that. And then pretty much it's gone through a lot of change over the past year because it's just fun. I don't have any sentimental attachment to my hair at the moment. Maybe one day I will, but it's like, it's just fun to mess around with it. So currently I'm trying to get a mullet going. It's not too great, but also not too bad. I need to tidy it up. But probably one of the funnier ones that I had was last year, a student came up and was like, T, we should cut our hair and dye it in the shape of the Avatar Aang arrow. And I'm like, yeah, right, bet, let's do it. And she didn't expect me to say yes. She was like, oh no, okay, yeah, I guess we're doing it. And we raised money along the way for it too. So that was fun. Yeah, and then following that, I put myself in a mohawk, and that was quite cool. Quite enjoyed that. Wanted to do that since I was a wee kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's great that you've just taken those personas and you've just enjoyed it. Like you just had fun along the way. Although maybe your second year was just a testament of your mental health, but that's okay. You still embraced it and just carried on, which is pretty cool. I mean, I guess university is a great time to try these things out, right? In a safe space. Safe space. And let's talk about you being a subwarden. What are some of the challenges that you've faced, given your mental health as well, and you might see young people going through that. How has it been for you? Because it is a taxing role. Nobody tells you about it. It's a bit like what Tana said before. When you come to university, everyone's like, but no one tells you how to study. And same thing with subwardening. You have this job description, but it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Nobody tells you that you're going to be up at 3 a.m. down at the hospital for certain reasons. So my mental health last year again was shot.
Yeah.
But I was able to do my job, thankfully.
Awesome.
So that whole collision of worlds was quite tough, but I was in a space where I was kind of like, well, I love this job and I love the kids, so I'm going to put that first. And my mental health kept falling further behind, which didn't help me, but I was really good at my job.
Yeah.
And I like to think that none of the kids knew what was going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
My boss certainly did.
Yeah.
My coworkers certainly did. But I still do my job.
Yeah. Awesome. And that's great. And so when you say your mental health was detracting again, what did that look like for you?
Yep. So at this time, I would say it's because a lot of it would go back to my uncle had just passed away at the start of last year. And so that was really sad. But there was also other family dynamics around that death that I had to help out with. Yeah. And that was a big drain on me. And so right throughout the year, I was dealing with a lot of that and a lot of my own grief. And I don't think I really faced up to my grief last year. And it's still something I'm working on. And so what that looked like for me was, again, the brain fog came in really heavy. I was quite frankly suicidal for a lot of last year and just struggling to get out of bed and do anything.
And it's really interesting to me that you say that. And on one side, you're saying this really hard to get out of bed and suicidal, but on the other side, you are doing your job really well. Isn't that a crazy paradox? But also not just a paradox, but also a true testament of how mental health shows itself or doesn't show itself. You're a classic example of someone who's out there. Whenever I saw you out there with the young people being amazing, but underneath you everyone's fighting their own battles. So And how have you gotten yourself through that? You said you've had an amazing support. Well, your staff team are pretty awesome. How have you? Because grief loss, like you said before, sometimes we just we bear it away. We're okay, we're all good, and then it just comes in at the most unexpected time, and then you're like, whoa, what the actual has just happened?
Yep, there it is again. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how have you gone through that? Because now this is because for yourself as well, you're trying to look after young people, trying to look after yourself. You're trying to be academic as well, because let's not forget you're still a university student in your fourth year of study. How has that all been for you? Or last year? Let's go with last year.
Yeah. Okay. Go back to last year. I failed a paper that I'm currently redoing and
Yeah.
feeling a lot more comfortable with. So my academic side just totally slipped. As soon as something got difficult, I went, nah, not interested in doing it anymore. I'm going to do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So it got me through enough of most of my papers, but the one that was really difficult just fell. And then the work side of it, I mean, in a way, knowing and having experienced my own and my friends and my family's mental health difficulties and struggles and also successes,
Yeah.
it just made me want to do the job even more,
Yeah.
because I, I would rather struggle myself than see somebody else struggling. And so that was what got me out of bed to go and help these kids or go and do sports with these kids. And
Yeah.
that was it. That was what got me out of bed. But
Yeah.
on my own terms, I wasn't doing studying, none of that.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, was there a light bulb moment or a switch or something that's helped you get through it, or was it just is it again just as the story has gone, it's just a small series of things that has just helped you,
Yeah.
readjust, reframe.
Again, no big light bulb moment. Like I can very comfortably say that right now I'm the best I've ever felt inside
Awesome.
and out. Just
Brilliant.
yeah, quite happy with that. But along the way, there was no big turning moment. Like you said, my staff are fantastic. So all three of my bosses helped me out, helped me get the correct support, get me on meds, and doing all of that. But then I think something that a time where I definitely noticed a shift was over the summer. Over the summer, I would normally go back to Wellington, see my family, do all of that. Last year, I just refused. I went up for a couple of days and then came back, did my obligatory hello, love you, goodbye. And then I spent summer in Dunedin, and I was looking after one of the staff here. I was looking after his house and his dog, and that was brilliant. I just got to sit by the beach, hang out with a dog, and just enjoy the sun, enjoy a bit of nothing. I also got to continue working around the college doing general maintenance. Like, I don't know, there was a fence that needed painting out the back, so I did that and went around screwing in all the window handles, just little jobs. It was a great job.
Yeah.
Very distracting to me. So I just got to twiddle around with screwdrivers and whatever it needed doing. And so all of that, again, it was kind of similar to 2020 where I sat and did nothing.
Yeah.
But that summer where I didn't have to study, but I was still getting in a routine and just able to enjoy myself in what I was doing was kind of very helpful. And then I came out of summer and I was like, okay, let's work on getting myself a routine. And it seems like one of the most simple and obvious things, but it just hadn't clicked to me that perhaps I need a routine, and now I have one.
Yeah. But sometimes it's the most simple things that are the hardest to do, right? It's the most
Yep.
simple things in life are the hardest things to do. So it's really awesome to hear that you've got your routine going now, because I mean, if you want to be in the police, hey, get those push-ups up. And that's thank you for sharing that. I mean, I can tell there was an emotional attachment to that, which is beautiful to share with us. So this year so you go, you do this, and then you come back to be a subordinate again. Was that by choice, or were you asked to come back?
Oh no, it was totally by choice. I love this place.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. And what's shifted for you this year? I mean, what's been a big shift for you?
Yeah, I would say so. Last year within work, I'll take a step back. Sorry, there are two different shifts: the shift in workload, but also the way that I deal with work. So first of all, the workload is different because last year we were dealing with a lot of quite intense mental health cases within the college.
Yeah.
But this year we are dealing with a lot of COVID management and all that comes with that. And my ability to deal with the workload is just far better. I was quite happy to run out and help these kids with their mental health issues and struggles. But it took a toll on me at the end of the day without even me realizing. My boss certainly realized, but I didn't. But then this year, all of the extra work that has to go into COVID management, or it's like, okay, it's my job, we can do this. And it's just, I think I'm just happy to continue being that pastoral carer for the kids this year.
And how do you look after yourself though? How do you look after yourself? And that's awesome that you look after other people. What about yourself? Who looks after Tian? What's her looking after routine?
Well, first of all, the big thing for me is managing my sleep. So waking up at the same time every day, trying to go to sleep before midnight, preferably. Sometimes, it's up and down. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty close. Another thing that helps me look after myself is I've got fish tanks in my room.
Random but cool,
Very random, but that's my latest hobby. And they are a very calming hobby to just watch and take care of and make sure that they don't die. We also have fish downstairs, like a big work tank, so that was another bit of my hobby. I'm also very keen on like bouldering, rock climbing, and so I try to get out and do that a little bit. I haven't been so great because I've been a little bit COVID hesitant, but I'm slowly getting back into it, and I'm even bringing my job into that. I'm taking the kids along rock climbing, which is cool.
Awesome. It's pretty cool. It's awesome. It's good. It's important to have the self-care routine. I think, Tanya, it's something that you've also spoken about before with the self-care routine, because both of you are amazing human beings that you want to give back all the time. Like I know this for a fact, but it's always important to look after yourself, which is what we were talking about before, right, Tanya, about it's okay to just take a break.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that you have to find, even when it is difficult. You want to always be there, and I'm sure it's similar with Tian. It's a job we want to do, so we don't mind doing it all the time. But eventually, you're like, I see the students right until I go to bed. I wake up and I see the students, and there's no real time for me in it. But I think also being online, it's made it more difficult because there's not so many other opportunities to go and see, your fellow students that do the same papers and do the same study. So it's constantly being around the hall. So hopefully now that the restrictions are easing a bit, that will help us restructure the way we do things, but also finding things that we enjoy ourselves.
And that's pretty important. I think that's important for both of you to look after yourself. So like the saying, like the cliche is, you in the airplane, put your mask on first before you can put on those masks. That's a great cliche, but it works well. Tian, we've been talking for almost an hour now.
Oh, crikey. It flies, eh?
It does fly. But I still want to just carry on going a tangent here. So you're in your 5th year of university now, and is there more study coming, or is this it? This is time, it's time to go now.
This is it. I'm out after this year. I'm done. So I'm working as hard as I can and figuring out my study strategies as best I can to make sure that this is it. Because as much as I love this job, I tolerate the city of Dunedin. I love my friends that are here. It's time for me to go. I've had enough. Next adventure. Thank you.
Exactly. Time for your next adventure. Yeah, because like I said, you thought it was a three-year program, but hey, but it's not. So I think what's important that you've raised here is university is not about the study. In this whole conversation, the study was just one part of the thread, but it's a whole lot more. The minute you leave home, the minute you go to university, it's you're finding yourself, but also not finding yourself and losing yourself, which is a thread that you've mentioned. And it's important. I think it's important for anyone that's listening out there that is at high school or at first university to go, actually, don't rush. Don't rush to finish this program here while you're forgetting about yourself as a person. I think this is what Tanya mentioned before. We always want to be ahead, and we forget that actually just being in line is okay. It's okay. Tian, we love to end our podcasts with a piece of knowledge. As you know, our podcast is called The Basket of Knowledge, and we always ask our guests to give us one piece of knowledge they would share with our listeners to fill their basket of knowledge out there. What would you like to share with our listeners, or for yourself, that you've thought that has been important for you?
I think one of the big things that I've learned over the past year is to not take the people around you for granted. Just be open and be loving and make the most of the time that you have. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very powerful share, because we get so busy doing things and searching for things that we forget about the people that actually give us experiences. And no matter
Yeah,
who they are.
exactly. The people around you will fill up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
And so if you even just small gratitude things like say, I appreciate you from time to time. It's just people are super valuable to how you make up your time.
Yeah, and I think that's also leads into what's happened to you in your life. Outwardly busy, doing a great job, but inwardly you were going through your own battles. And I think, like you said, if you're just kind to people around you, if you have no idea what they're doing, just being kind to somebody, the inward battle will be just a little bit less harder. That's a very powerful share, and I think that's just for anybody, not just universities, but anybody out there. That's a great way to end this chat today. Tian, this has been a very eye-opening journey for me. Thank you for sharing that. What I've picked up from here is that you have gone through your journey, and you're out there wanting to do the best that you can. You're very community driven. You enjoy having fun. But behind all that, you have acknowledged the fact that, hey, university comes with its drugs, it comes with alcohol, it comes with bad people, peers that are not your group. And sometimes you fall into those groups there, and it's just about, for you, it was the person that you dated that actually said, hey, mate, this is not the right thing. Your peers, your flatmates. I think it's important, like you said before, to take the people around you not for granted, because they will help you through that, to the worst of the worst and the best of the best.
Exactly.
And the one big thing that I've got is routine. If you feel that routine is key.
Hey, and it might not be that important for everybody, but it is for me. So
exactly, routine and fish. That's it. Routine and fish. That's me. Done. Happy days.
And a dog. Just there's lots of dogs around me, so that gives me big happiness.
Brilliant. Awesome. Tane, anything you'd like to say to Tian or to our listeners?
It's just been awesome to hear Tian's story, and it's cool to see, the impact that her high school teachers had on her. She's now doing that in her own space. At the college, I'm sure you're making a big impact on those students, and that's the rewarding part. You don't always see the impact you're making on people, but I'm sure, as you've gone through the journey, there's been small parts where the residents do appreciate all you're doing, and that's what you take away from it, and that's all you want, really. So it's awesome to see that you are making that impact in your spaces.
Yeah, and we look forward to you telling us that you've got a successful application to police college. Boom.
I sure hope so. I'll keep you updated.
Totally. Awesome. So thank you, Tian, for joining us today. Thank you, Tane, as always. And to our listeners, as always, this podcast goes nowhere without you. So feel free to share this, like this, comment on this on the different platforms. And until next time, don't forget to keep filling up your basket with a bit of knowledge. Thank you, everybody.